Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see you, even though I can't quite see you because of the way that we have set this up. But welcome to Teaching for Transformation, becoming a community college educator with your Women's and Gender Studies master's degree. So welcome, everyone. It's great to see you. We're very excited to have this group of community college professors and teachers and educators be with us today to talk with us about this project of teaching in community colleges and about gender and women's studies in the Chicago schools, community colleges. So this is part of a project of women's and gender studies. It's the Feminist Pedagogy Project. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sanjuta Mukherjee, who is one of the leaders of that project.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to you all again. I'm Sanjukta Mukherjee, faculty in Women's and Gender Studies, and Anne and myself are co-directors of the Feminist Pedagogy Project. We've kind of envisioned it as a collaborative project that brings together feminist scholars who are using intersectional and transnational feminist frameworks to think about teaching, pedagogies, kind of skills and resources that we could all share and gather, particularly given that teaching in the contemporary times, particularly teaching about global crises that we are in the midst of, or teaching feminist issues in general offer more challenges. So how can we collaborate on gathering resources, strategies, share syllabi? So please stay tuned. I'm going to drop a link on our website so you can see more information, and we will be periodically sending more information about the project and collaborating on events like this. It's lovely to see everybody. A lot of our alums are here, so very nice to see people who I haven't sort of seen in a while. Welcome.
Yes, welcome, welcome, welcome. I want to introduce this event then. This is part of a collaboration between the Feminist Pedagogy Project, which is myself, Anne Russo, Dr. Sanjuta Mukherjee, and also a current graduate student, Claudia Cisneros Mendez. And we have built a collaboration with the three speakers you're going to hear about tonight, trying to build a relationship between our department, our students, our graduate students, and the Chicago-based community college system as a way of like making a bridge between our students and opportunities of teaching in the community colleges and building a relationship with for the students who may transfer from community colleges into DePaul University, and kind of centering women's and gender studies. So this is we're just very excited about this collaboration. And the three people who I'm going to introduce right now are central to it, and they're going to be the ones running this amazing workshop. So we have Viggy Alexanderson from the City Colleges of Chicago. We have DePaul alum Anna Arredondo from the Richard J. Daley College. And we have Amanda Luce, also a kind of an alum, but also part of our graduate program right now from Harold Washington College. So I'm gonna put up a link in the chat where you can read about their longer bios that will tell you a little bit more about their approach, what they've been doing, just give you a fuller picture of them. So I'll turn it now over to our speakers. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Anne.
All right. So hi, everyone. Welcome again. My name is Amanda. I use she, her pronouns, and I've been teaching at Harold Washington College since 2002, part-time, and then 2003 full-time. And I'm in the humanities department and teach various humanities courses, fine arts, interdisciplinary courses, and gender and women's studies and sexuality studies courses. Nice to be here with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Arredondo, and as Ann said, I am at Richard J. Daley College on the south side by Midway. I've been teaching at Daley for about 20 years, and I started off as an adjunct and later became a full-time faculty member, and I teach in the English department, but across departments, teaching sociology courses, GWSS courses, history courses that all focus on women's and gender studies.
Hi, I'm Vicky Alexanderson. I teach at Malcolm X College as my home college. I should also mention the three of us wear so many hats that sometimes we teach at some of the other colleges to sort of support each other with our respective disciplines across the district. I'm in English, humanities, and gender, women's, and sexuality studies, and I guess interdisciplinary studies too, our college success department's discipline. And I've been at CCC since 2014 and in higher ed for 15 or 16 years. I always get confused when it's the spring semester. Um, so I am going to pass it to Amanda.
We'd like to start with a quote from Bell Hooks from her book, Teaching Community, A Pedagogy of Hope. She says, "To be guided by love is to live in community with all life. However, a culture of domination like ours does not strive to teach us how to live in community. As a consequence, learning to live in community must be a core practice for all of us who desire spirituality in education. All too often, we think of community in terms of being with folks like ourselves, the same class, same race, same ethnicity, same social standing, and the like. All of us evoke vague notions of community and compassion, yet how many of us compassionately went out to find an intimate other to bring them with us today?"
Thank you, Amanda. Shifting gears to look at the workshop agenda, this is what we have in store for you today, and we're actually pretty much right on schedule, which is great. And we are opening and doing a check-in from 5:30 to 5:40. What do you know about community colleges from 5:40 to 5:50? Community colleges 101 from 5:50 to 6 o'clock. And then we will talk about WGS, also known as GDubs, at the community colleges and city colleges from 6 to 6:15. Then we'll shift gears to sharing our stories and perspectives, such as joys and challenges of teaching at a community college for about 10 minutes. Then we'll talk about some considerations and what it takes to get hired and stay hired, and also the nuances of that between whether you're trying to teach GDubs core subject courses or ancillary courses like a history course like Women in History, which would be a non-core subject GDubs course. Then we'll check out, do closings, and if there's time for questions and reflections, we will also incorporate that. Thank you.
All right. I love, Vicky, that you said all of the times because those are just hopeful things that we're trying to go for there. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we'll try to stay on point there. So we're going to start with a quick check-in. I know it looks like everyone has their cameras off, which is fine. But if you want to, you can always turn it on when you are sharing. We just like to go around and just share your name, your pronouns, your year, or your year in the WGS program or your relationship to the WGS program. So those are the first things. And if you want to add, have you ever taught in any capacity before, or what brings you to this workshop? So I'm not sure how many do we have in the room. Okay, so I think we can get through everyone, right? So should I just start with Mary?
Hello, we're unable to open the video. I think it's the setting of the meeting.
Can you try again? I just tried to change it.
Great. Let's see.
We can see you.
Oh, you can?
Yes.
Okay, great.
See
I
lovely
cannot.
faces.
Thank you. I just got off work and I'm sitting in a lounge. So if there's music in the background, I apologize. So my name is Mary, pronouns she, her, hers. I graduated from DePaul Women's and Gender Studies Department in 2017. I have not taught in I've always been interested in teaching. I've covered for Professor Leila Farah few times, taught in her classes. I've always been interested in teaching. And I think what interests me in this Zoom meeting in particular is to learn more about community college and ways how to utilize my degree, even before considering a PhD, how I can utilize it in a teaching position.
Thank you so much, Mary. Victoria?
My pleasure.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I use she or they pronouns. I did my bachelor's and my master's at WGS at DePaul, and I have been teaching for WGS and for the Peace, Justice, and Conflict Studies program for the last 5 years. I think this is my 5th year. So I've been teaching that capacity part-time. And I would really love to branch out. I love DePaul. We just started a disability studies certificate program, but I would really like to diversify what I'm doing.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I think we have Jovan.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Jovan. For some of the faculty at DePaul, you might know me as Rumi. I went by that name while I was there. I use they and them pronouns, and I graduated from the WGS program last year in 2023. I have co-taught a few classes, but it's actually been a couple of years since I had the opportunity to teach a full course. And in the last couple of years, I've had to develop a lot of workshops and do one-off sort of things, but haven't had the opportunity to really lead folks through, the full arc of learning that you go through in a quarter or in a semester. And then what brings me to this workshop? Well, I got the invitation from Ann Russo, of course, but I'm actually a current employee in city colleges as well, and I'm really anxious to teach. That's my goal for my career, so I'm excited that we're all here together today to learn about it. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Jovan. And Andrea, I believe. And remember, you don't have to answer both of the bottom questions. You can just choose one if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, so my name is Andrea. My pronouns are she, her, and I am actually doing a master's degree in writing, rhetoric, and discourse at DePaul. I wanted to do the women's and gender studies certificate, but the classes didn't line up right. But a lot of the work that I do that I'm researching has to do with gender and high control religion. So I don't know, that's why I'm here, because I'm interested in teaching, and I just wanted to hear more about this. So
JP.
Hi, my name's JP. I use they, she pronouns, and I am actually in the first year of the Women in Gender Studies program, the master's program here at DePaul. And I do have my undergrad in writing, rhetoric, and literacies from Arizona State University. And what really brings me to this workshop is I want to pursue higher education. My ultimate goal is to become a professor when all is said and done. And I also just really love the classroom. I think it's a very transformative space, and it's also a very safe space as well for conversations and dissecting difficult conversations as well. And WGS has only opened my mind to more thinking, and it's going to continuously grow. And it's something that I'm very excited to be part of.
JP, you're going to see some of your comments reflected in later slides of ours. Damara.
Hi, thank you guys for having me. My name is Damara. My pronouns are she, her. I'm in my first year of my WGS program. I have taught not in a professor capacity, but as an esthetician instructor. So I spend a lot of time with women and people that are transitioning and things of that sort. And it's something that has opened my eyes to being more compassionate and wanting to be that person for other people and be someone's person. And that made me want to teach in a different capacity. Is actually what brought me to my WGS program.
Amazing. Thank you, Tamara.
Thank you.
Maya?
Can you guys see?
Yes.
Can you?
We see you.
Sorry, did you call Chelsea?
No, I called Maya.
Apologies.
No problem, no problem. But I don't know. Maybe Maya.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So my name is Maya Sinclair. My pronouns are she, her. I'm trying to read the page. So in relation to the WGS program, I'm actually an alumni of DePaul. I graduated in the fall of 21. And my journey is really interesting. It's interdisciplinary. My master's program is interdisciplinary, but it combines WGS and critical ethnic studies. And so I like to say I have a degree in Black women's studies. And have I taught in any capacity? So for the last year and a half, I was I'll say facilitator coach, where I taught a CBI curriculum to Black men who were between the age of 18 and I would say 40, who were at risk for being perpetrators or victims of gun violence. And so I ended up not only being able to facilitate a curriculum, I was also able to begin then managing my coaches who were peers. And so that really is, I believe that nothing is wasted in this world. So I'm so excited to be at this workshop because I feel as though transitioning from one role has prepared me to be able to not only just show up for diverse communities, but also be able to meet them where they are and speak to the fact that they are human first before they are a student. I believe that the classroom, as has been said before, it really is a pathway to resistance and liberation. And so I believe that having that previous experience and working with different types of people has prepared me to become a professor who, like I said, really sees people for who they are in their humanness first, looking past their barriers and meeting them where they are.
Thank you so much, Maya. Chelsea? You're up.
Hi, sorry for earlier. Commuting,
That's
it's wild right now. Yes, hi everyone. I'm Chelsea, she, her pronouns. I did my master's in WGS at DePaul. And I have this is my second time being brought back to teach within the DePaul Gender Studies department. And I am just surprised by how much I've been loving it. And so when Anne sent this invitation, I just can't wait to learn more about ways to possibly, work with the community colleges.
amazing. Thank you so much. Does the amazing Layla want to share?
In the chat, I'm sorry. I know you're sharing your screen, Anna, but Layla would like to pass if that's all right.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's fine. Angelina.
Hi everyone, I'm Angelina or Ange, she, her pronouns. And I did my bachelor's in WGS at DePaul, and I am back for my master's as well as social work. And so I'm not taught, but that is why I'm here. And yeah, just excited to learn more.
Awesome. Thank you, Angelina. All right. I think I'm on Clarissa.
I think they wrote into the chat.
Okay, yeah, I
Clarissa.
can't really see in the chat. And I didn't know if Sangjukta or Anne wanted to share anything. If not, we can move on.
Hi, I'm happy for you to carry on. I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Amazing. Thank you, Sangjukta. All right, we're gonna move on then. Thanks everyone for sharing. We're so excited to have you all here. We have some exciting things to talk about, so we will move along.
Anna and Amanda, I feel like this question, they went into such depth that I sort of feel like that some of them answered this. So should we just see who knows instead of
Yeah.
going to everyone? Yeah,
No,
awesome.
no, we weren't going to go to everyone.
Okay.
So what we were going to do, if you want to add something maybe that you didn't say in your check-in just to the chat, you can add something that maybe you know about community colleges so far, anything that you already know, or you can raise your hand and we can call on you. We'll just take a couple of minutes to do that, just so we get a sense of maybe some of the things you know. Does it look like not much? Because I'm not seeing, am I missing someone raising their hand? No? Okay, we have
All right.
Andrea.
Oh, you see hands. Sorry. I wasn't sure if you could see hands.
Andrea, did you want to share something?
Yeah, so I actually went to College of DuPage after getting a bachelor's degree years ago, but like trying to switch careers. And I was really impressed with the quality of education I got there. Like I started studying rhetoric like when I was taking writing courses there. So I was just surprised at how, I don't know what I thought about. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking about community colleges before, but I was very impressed with the quality of education that I got. And it was cheap. So
2 pluses. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else wanted to share? Let's see. I see that JP said that they started at COD as well, and then they transferred to ASU. And we have Maya that would like to share something. Go ahead, Maya.
Thanks. Okay. I remember I too I transferred to a community college. It wasn't city colleges, but it was Prairie State. And I'm extremely proud of my education that I got from Prairie State and my experience as a community college student going to university. Like, really proud of that experience. But one thing I will note, and which is why I'm actually extremely happy to be here today, is the fact that there's a WGS curriculum. I don't know if Prairie State has one, but I remember that they did not. And that's honestly, I feel like that's kind of an issue, because why do we have to wait to go to university to get into this material, to get into this? I think that's kind of a disadvantage. So that, again, like that makes me super excited for this workshop. But I'm just remembering, like, I don't think there was a WGS curriculum, which is terrible.
Sadly, Maya, what you're going to see is there aren't a lot of places that do have the curriculum as we're gonna talk, and that's kind of why we've been working so hard on the things we've been working on. So we have some others that are, I don't know if I'm missing one. Jovan said, I'm a current CCC employee. Yes, you had said that, right? I don't know a lot about the district yet, but I can tell you plenty about the Wellness Center at Olive Harvey. Kudos to the Wellness Center. I was actually going to bring the Wellness Center up at some point. So that's amazing, right? So at least you know that we have a wellness center, right, across our 7 schools, which is amazing thing. That started actually way too late, in my opinion, but we have one. Amazing. Any others? No?
Can I just tack on to that, Anna, that the Wellness Center, at least at Harold Washington College, was begun by faculty in the Women's Studies, what was then the Women's Studies Committee. So it had been long in the works, but sort of carried forward from them. Just a side note, sorry.
Yeah, love that side note.
I was about to put in the chat, Amanda, also at Kennedy King, their women's center was a pseudo wellness center back in the 80s because of that, the needs, some of the interdisciplinary and somatic needs of our students.
All right. All right. We're just going to give you a quick little run through of some Community College 101 stuff.
Yeah, so you all already know a lot, but the very first question you might also be asked in an interview, and from ones that I've facilitated also, is what do you know about community colleges? And so that was strategic on our part to ask you that. So this is a little tiny mini crash course. We can move through it quickly, but you'll receive a copy of this slideshow too if you want any further information. Joliet Junior College was the first one in 1901. The Truman Commission established a publicly funded network of community colleges in 1948 as part of the GI Bill. And then, as you can see, there are many, 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 many community colleges across the nation. And you can see that they're a little bit condensed around urban areas, but also spread all over in all of the states.
And as far as the mission statements per college, and we'll see a sample mission statement on the next slide, but the bones of any mission statement, or you would hope, would be the 3 pillars. So academic, professional, and personal pursuits. If you work for an institution, whether it's a community college or four-year institute, and they don't have all 3 of those pillars, then I have questions, and I'll leave it at that. And then this is a sample mission statement. And what I really appreciate about Harold Washington College's mission statement, you can see when you revisit these bullet points, how people-centered their mission statement is, and that really speaks to the legacy of Harold Washington, who was considered the people's mayor, and he was elected in 1983. So continue. Thank you.
And we can just add that every city college has a different mission statement. We create our own, so.
And just to orient us to the prevalence of community colleges, 41% of all undergraduates in the US are enrolled at community colleges, 41%. And there are just numerous kind of quick, fast facts that you might be interested in. The diversity of the students who attend community colleges. This is national, not necessarily city colleges, although we can echo some of that. Average age is 27. 58%, so usually more than half, identify as women. There are both credit and non-credit courses and programs. Many are first-generation college students, many are parents. And in terms of demographics, 28% are Latinx, 12% Black, 43% white, and moving down from there. So we can tease some of this out as we talk later on about the populations that we work with at the city colleges. And 87.2% of students at the city colleges are students of color. If you just want to compare that, DePaul's number is 41.3. And several of our colleges are either Hispanic serving institutions or predominantly Black institutions. And the highest population that we serve are Latinx students. And then Black students and white students are 12%, and Asian Pacific Islander. And now I need to get my glasses off. This is how far I am in my career, 5.9%. Not specified 2.4, and multiracial 2.3. So that's, and you know, as you have the slideshow later, you can sort of see how that breaks down between types of degrees.
All right, so just a couple of other things to consider when you're thinking about teaching at a community college. We do have, I don't know if I like the word small class sizes, because I feel like, you know, they're up to about 30 students. We're able to have classes, but we're not in huge lecture halls. So they are, you know, a more intimate space. And actually our enrollment is not at peak right now. So usually a lot of our classes aren't getting to that 30 number anyway. So, so yeah, they are smaller class sizes. And our courses really kind of align with the 100 and 200 level at universities, right? Just so that, you know, we have, you know, associate degrees, we have transfer programs, we have dual enrollment, which means that I get a little mixed up with dual enrollment, and we have a couple of programs that are high school students, right? Some of them are at our school. So we'll have high school students that are taking classes at our school. Is that the dual enrollment? Or is it?
Yes, and
Okay.
also college students who are at other four-year institutions who transfer back and forth for their credits.
Right. But we also, I don't think this is on here, but we also have students who are taking college level courses at their high school. And I forget what that's called, early college or something like that, right? And just, you know, as a note, 90% of our students qualify for the Pell Grant. So a lot of them are getting financial aid. And those who aren't don't have to like break the pocketbook, right? It's only $153 per credit hour, which is a great deal. As Amanda already stated, we have a lot of non-traditional students, and our students are usually between the ages of, you know, late teens to early 20s. And since our career has kind of just changed, Amanda and I have noticed that really our students are getting younger, right? When we first started, our students were a little bit older than what they are now. One thing to really note is that the majority of our students are working. Some of them are working full-time, some of them are working multiple jobs, part-time jobs, and they're often caretakers of their own children, of parents, etc. Right? So they have a lot of things going on, and that's something that we really have to take note of when we are teaching these students. We have veteran students, we have survivors of the prison industrial complex, and we have a lot of students who have you know, food and housing insecurity. And that's when I was going to bring up the wellness center, right? So we do have wellness centers that can help with a lot of these, a variety of, you know, things that our students are dealing with on a regular basis. So at least we do have some resources there if needed.
Okay, so now we're going to shift gears and talk about teaching in our discipline at the community college level, opportunities and options. So there's something to consider: types of teaching positions. At CCC, we have full-time tenure track faculty. And once you are tenure track, you are entered in as instructor. And once you go through the 3 years of tenure track, you can advance to assistant professor. And then with meeting some other requirements, about 4 years later, associate professor, and about at least 6 years later, full professor. And that is bargained for by our union, the local 1600 CCCTU union. The majority of community college educators are part-time adjuncts. A part-time adjunct is known as an instructor, and some of them are unionized. After 3 semesters, they get unionized, which means they have extra rights, including like more equitable pay options. And then there are part-time adjuncts that don't have that union status, which are the adjuncts that have not completed at least 3 semesters in the CCC system. A full-time course load for most disciplines is 15 credits, so 5 classes if they're 3 credit classes. However, and we'll talk about this more with the other slides, if you're hired into, because we do not have gender, women's, and sexuality studies as a home department, as its own department yet. That's not where we're at with the programming. So if your home department, let's say, is sociology, then yes, that rule is still true. You'll teach 5 classes, but English, if one of you has both an English degree and both a GDubs degree, like at least 2 of us who are presenting today, then your contract says you're teaching 4 courses, and at least 3 of those have to be composition. So there's nuances depending on what your home department is. For part-time instructors, your max would be 12 credits at CCC, so 4 courses, and that is really in any discipline. And like it says, you might teach in multiple departments, and there's sometimes online teaching options, and my colleagues can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of rare to see adjuncts with online teaching courses because they go pretty fast. They usually go to full-time faculty members, and there's credentialing that needs to happen regarding whether you have the credentialing requirements for online as well as hybrid teaching. So like 1 day in person, 1 day online.
I just wanted to add one thing, Viggy. The
Yeah.
part-time course load for part-time English. So if you are hired into English, is 3 courses max, not 4. So
Oh,
yeah. So
is
just
this new? I think they
no,
did me a
that's not
favor
new.
back in
It's always like
2013.
1 class under a full-time load. So
Okay.
it's always 1 class under a full-time load. So I know Andrea, is it Andrea or Andrea? Can't remember, but I know you, is it
Andrea, yeah.
Andrea, you're English major. So you would be able to teach 3 courses as a part-timer if they were in English. But if they were in GWSS, you could teach 4.
And also just to add that the 12 credit maximum is within our city colleges system, but many adjuncts also teach at city colleges plus Oakton or plus College of DuPage, right? Like, so they might be teaching at multiple colleges, and then there's obviously no maximum there. So there are several different kinds of WGS programs that you might find in the US overall. So there is a significant presence, but undercounting is a problem. So there's been some research by Alyssa Storr talking about like just simply counting the numbers of programs that are in the country at community colleges, but there's so many varied ways that those programs could appear. They could be full-on programs, they could be a selection of courses, there could be a concentration within another discipline, there could be a certificate program that might be a full-on associate degree credential. And there are about, according to their research, about 100 community colleges in that offer some version of GWs in some orientation. Oakton Community College is a local one that has had a long time program in WGS, 1 course plus other discipline themed courses. And then in the city college system, there are 7 colleges and right now rolling out 10 GWs courses that are transdisciplinary, and we'll talk much more about that coming up in the workshop. So we just wanted to share a little bit because it might give you an idea in addition to like the status of programs across the country. Locally with us, there has been a long history of various kinds of incarnations. So at Harold Washington College, there was a Women's Studies Committee since the 1980s, and also since 2017. Wright College has had a steering committee. The Women's Center at Kennedy King has been around for quite a long time too. And so there have been like committees, courses, people working on courses, and advocating for a full department, advocating for a discipline, advocating for the addition of more courses. There have always been people doing this work, as well as faculty and students as well who work on curricular and co-curricular like events and community building, student advising, and a whole range of other contributions. I can pass that to Anna.
Oh, right. Yeah, so we all came on at different iterations of this evolution. And so Amanda was kind of one of the first ones there. I came in a little later. I got my degree at DePaul in the summer of 2015. And then I was like, ooh, I want this one. It was a Intro to Women's and Gender Studies course at my school. And that's just a note. Not all classes that are at one school are at all 7, right? So there are a variety of classes. Some are at some schools, some are at others, and we have to go through a process to get them at our school. So I was putting through the process to get this Intro to Women's and Gender Studies course at my school, along with some other schools. And that's when I realized, like, oh, there are a bunch of people doing this work and we want to get together. And so one of those main people was a colleague named Valerie Pell, who did a lot of work and has since passed, but we are trying to keep her legacy strong by moving on and getting this done. We've made so much progress, and I know she'd be so happy right now if she knew what was going down. So, and I think Biggie could speak a little to that.
Yeah, so with the past reflections, what I try to think about in terms of how to articulate what's presently happening is that there were so many great things happening, and they're kind of under 3 boxes, which is curricular, and co-curricular. First, curricular is core courses, like a course that is called Ecofeminism or Intro to Gender, Women's, and Sexuality Studies. Another curricular course is an ancillary GDubs course, like we said earlier, like Women in History. And then there were all these amazing co-curricular things happening, like the women's centers that were talked about, or Wright College's GWSS steering committee. They're co-curricular because they have something that's kind of hybridized, which is like if you have an ancillary GDubs course like English 101, and we'll talk about this more with the designation, but you can theme it GDubs and sort of make it count for some transferability that would support, because we don't cross-list, but it would support cross-listing elsewhere potentially. So with those 3 categories in mind, we thought, how can we shape courses to, one, finally be affirmed as a discipline? Because since the 1980s, it's not like all of us who've been working on this have not have been disorganized. There's very strategic things happening administratively to not allow us to be the discipline that we know we are. People saying, oh, you're just a theoretical department, you're just a theoretical discipline. What specifically are GDubs methodologies? What specifically are GDubs epistemologies, ontologies, and axiologies? And then they would try to box us in to say, like, sociological ones are our specific methodologies. So in the development of the 10 new courses and the 4 pathways, we had to answer those questions in really concrete ways. And on the next slide in a second, you'll see those 10 courses. But on this slide, for now, I just want to say that what ended up happening was how we structured what makes us a discipline. We thought about the pillars, going back to the mission statement. How would our courses both serve the students academically, professionally, and personally? And in not just theoretical ways, but applied ways. Because maybe, I don't think this is the first time you're hearing it, but a lot of people might have approached you and said, oh, you got a GDubs degree. Well, what are you going to do with that? That's just theoretical. And there are applied ways that GDubs is absolutely necessary. And it's like, how do you talk about that? How do you teach that? And that's why these 4 pathways were created. So general AA, CARE, which is culture, arts, representation, and empowerment, SJP, which is our social justice and policy pathway, and then SHE, which is STEM, health equity, and embodied social justice. We are trying to have a more clear applied AS coming soon that relates to some of our grant funding from the Department of Justice as it relates to the intersection of STEM and GDubs. Would you mind going to the next slide, Anna? You probably have. I'm looking at my window, so if you already did that, I apologize. Okay. So actually, I don't think it's my slide.
It's not your slide.
All of
That's
it.
okay. But we've mentioned a number of these already, and just to say that we have GDubs affiliated courses across other disciplines: sociology of sex and gender, gender and feminisms in the arts, women's literature, gay and lesbian literature. And so when you are applying and seeking to teach some of these courses, you first need to be credentialed in the discipline where they are housed, so to speak, and sort of then market your experience in women's and gender studies to teach the specific content of that course, the specific curriculum.
And I guess we can say also that really every school has a little bit of a different way that they go about hiring in different disciplines. Some are a little bit more lax, where they may not, like you could have a WGS degree and then teach one of these sort of ancillary classes that are in humanities, for example. But some schools are a little bit more strict, where if you're teaching a humanities course, you need that humanities degree first. So it really depends on which one of the 7 schools you're trying to teach at.
And I just want to say, from the district, on the district level, I'm the faculty council president, and this credentialing issue comes up in all departments. When you revisit this slideshow, click the former credentialing guide, because even though it might seem different per college, HLC, our accreditors, and ICCB, the Illinois Community College Board, can always come back and say, why is this person teaching? So if it were me, I'm overly anxious about those sort of things. Like I would say, oh, awesome, I'm getting to teach this course, but I would also try to put stock in being in the right department based on the credentialing guidelines, so that you're not completely without courses later.
And then in addition to those courses that are designed originally to be GWS affiliated, we also have general education courses that can be taught with an emphasis per the discretion, expertise, and credentialing of the instructor. And you would work with your department, with your GWS committee sometimes, and your department chair, your VP, if that's necessary, to be able to offer this particular emphasis. So we've had Intro to Film with an LGBTQ cinema emphasis, a philosophy art with feminist aesthetics as the emphasis. A longtime colleague has done gender studies in his social and political philosophy class, etc. from there.
And I'll just add that the nuance between the emphasis and the designation, everything Amanda said about the emphasis is true. And when the student transfers, that emphasis is not necessarily on a student's transcript. So the nuance of having the designation gives like extra muscles to the transferability of the emphasis, and also what it means in alignment to GW's program learning outcomes. I think that's all we really probably need to say about that one. And then these are 10 new courses, as well as the GW subject code credentialing. So maybe some of you have both. I think I heard a few of you say you have the GW's degree and the social worker degree. You can check the social work credentialing in that link I mentioned earlier. But for GW's, it's a minimum of a master's degree in a general area of knowledge of gender, women's, and sexuality studies, and successful completion of our annual CCC GW's training from the discipline. And then you can read the rest of that, but that's the gist of it. And then I'll get to the 10 courses, which are GW's 101, Intro to GW's, GW's 102, Intro to Gender and Sexuality Diversity. A lot of schools call this Intro to LGBTQIA+, and we went back and forth about the title, but this is what it is. And then Intro to Social Justice, Abolitionist Feminism through the Liberative Arts and Expressive Research. And our hope is to continue our partnership with the Illinois Department of Juvenile Justice, so we can have, so we can center the voices of students, because we do have students who are currently incarcerated, as well as students who have been formerly incarcerated. 203 is our Feminist and Queer Artivisms for Social Change course. 204, Pleasure, Activism, Body Politics, and Translating Sexuality. 210, Ecofeminism. 220, Queer Theory at the Community College 200 level. So don't worry, we're not teaching them graduate work. And then Queer Feminist Ethno-STEM Theory, and that involves a lot of like queer technosciences. Just one quick thing to note about this is 3 of our 7 courses count as humanities fine arts courses. and 3 count as social sciences, or that's how we've categorized them. And we're waiting until mid-March for the Illinois Articulation Initiative to give us the full transferability permission for those courses. So in theory, students could take up to 4 of our courses and count them towards their gen ed, which would be great, and also set them up really well when they transfer to a school like DePaul, because it would count both for their major and their gen eds.
And I just want to shout out to Viggy for the one doing like all the creation of these courses. She barely slept for how long have we been working on this? 2 years, Viggy?
2.5 years. What is sleep? I'm a cyborg by this point.
I was like, how are we going to put 10 courses through? I don't know, but we did it. So it's there. All right. I just wanted to add in, and we're not going to go through all these, but if you're thinking about teaching some of these courses, I just wanted to share some of the textbooks that we're using. So I put up some of the textbooks for the core courses. We're all about OERs, trying to keep the cost low for our students. So there are some OERs that we use, or that, and just keep in mind, if you do teach, the recommended textbooks, right? So you do have academic freedom, but I will say adjuncts, it really depends on the timing of your hire, right? So like if you are hired really late in the game where a class is, is going to start, in a couple of days or in a week, the textbook has already been chosen, right? So like you might have to use a textbook if it is a print textbook with those students, because that's the one that, was chosen like months prior. So we just have a few here. I'm not going to go through the names. Those are some of the GWSS courses. And then you can always go back to this slide if you want to look at it, if you plan on teaching any of the courses, to see. I know Amanda teaches the Humanities 144, and so these are some of the books that she has here. I've taught Sociology 207 a bunch, and I think this is a really nice, succinct book for the Sex and Gender course. I've also taught History 118, and so those are some of the courses, books that I've used. And Lit 150, which is the women's literature course, it's just like a playground of beautiful books and things. I'm like just pulling stuff from all over the place. So I just gave some author names there. But you can do so much in a course like that because there are so many wonderful things they could be reading. All right. We're just going to share a little bit about how we got to why we took this path, right? So I think, Amanda, you're going to start.
Yeah. So I didn't intend to be a community college educator at all. I went to graduate school in Chicago, and I hadn't seen any of Chicago, so I decided to stay. And then I thought, well, I've got a master's degree. Let me try teaching. And I'd already been teaching at a family literacy program, a library-based family literacy program. So I'd done other kinds of teaching and just really felt compelled and pulled to it. But I didn't really expect my career to be this. And then I started teaching part-time, and I had felt a little disconnected as an adjunct, and I was thinking, I don't think this is for me. And then my department chair said, but you could teach a film class. And so I went back to teach the film class. And then when the full-time position came open, I was like thrilled to have been hired for that position in the humanities department. But I also was not hired to teach WGS or anything related to it. I was hired to teach cinema and humanities. And then one of the longtime Women's Studies Committee chair just sort of pulled me in and said, you want to do this, you want to come to our meetings, you want to teach this course, right? And over the years, it's really my students who have encouraged me to teach more and more and more women's and gender and sexuality studies content due to their questions, their interests, my interests in developing curriculum, and that really has grown from there. I realized that I didn't have as much foundation as I needed to have to be doing that. So I went back to DePaul and completed the certificate program 8 years ago. And now I'm back to finish the master's program as well, which should be finished up soon this spring. So that's my journey.
Okay, I'll go next. I originally did not think I was going to teach community college. I was going to be a high school teacher. I love, like, I don't know, molding the brains of teenagers. I thought I was going to be great. And then I was in my last, I was, I don't know, a couple years into my bachelor's, and I was like, you know what? I love what they're teaching in these classes, like in college. And I started out in a community college, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to switch my major, and I'm just going to do an English degree, not a education degree. And I switched, and I was like, I want to be, a community college professor. And so I went to I ended up going to like an open house or something, and where for all the city colleges. And I ended up getting a job as an adjunct. And I realized very quickly that you can't live on the pay of an adjunct. Even if you're teaching at multiple schools. And I was waiting tables, I was teaching classes, and so I went back, and I was going to then go back and teach high school. So I was going to get I went back, I got certified to teach high school, and then a full-time position came open. And I was like, wow. So I applied, and I ended up getting it. And so then I had my certification as a high school teacher, but also I was then teaching college. And GWS came to me later. It was something I always was passionate about, but I really didn't know that at that time, I didn't know like what they had, like what kind of programs they had. And I was looking for classes to take because you have to take a certain amount of classes, like to for your tenure, and then also some other things to move up pay grades. And I saw there's this amazing program at DePaul. I'm gonna do it. And I did the program, I did the MA at DePaul, and ever since then I've been like hooked. And so everything's WGSS related in some way.
I started at a private 2-year women's college with 300 students. It was the only 2-year women's college in the country at the time. Around 2010, it expanded to 4-year and then went back to 2 because I think it realized what its market was since the early 1900s. And then I transferred to Prescott College, which was also another 2-year private school to complete my bachelor's. And in the middle of that, I went to COD, like some of you. I'm mentioning this because those experiences were really supportive, and they were always steeped in GDubs. And then I went to my graduate program, which I won't name because I don't have the best things to say right now, which is that I appreciate my learning from the program, but I don't appreciate comments like when faculty would say to me, you will never teach in a metropolitan area to schools that serve historically marginalized students. And I just thought that was such foolishness. And so I refused to believe what other people had in mind for my future. And I continued on my path, and to my surprise, within 3 months of graduating from the graduate program, I was hired as an adjunct at Harold Washington College, and like the faculty there were just such sweethearts, so supportive. That's one thing. If you work at a CCC school, try to be social, because you might not. I never could have imagined how much your colleagues are rooting for your success, or at least that was my experience. And I wouldn't be on this path. I wouldn't have then been prepared for the interview that got me on tenure track at Wright College. let alone like then able to like expand the GDubs programming at Malcolm X College without the support of colleagues. So I think like whatever my path has been, whatever sort of like counter arguments have arisen, my success is a we success, not a me success. And that's really important to me. And then right now, because I want to work on some stuff on the national level and the state level, the last thing I'll say is I'm also working on a PhD that is the convergence of GDubs, social justice, and philosophy, so that we can be more nationally recognized as not just a theoretical discipline, and recognized as an applied discipline, and not just academically, but to career sectors. So like, imagine what might it mean to be a gender doula? That's one of my big dissertation research areas. And if anyone's interested in that, I would love to talk more about that offline if you also would like to consider research like that. So I think that's all I'll say, but yeah, we could probably go to the next section.
All right. So from everything you've heard so far, do you think you might want to try it? Here are some considerations, and then we'll move into, how to actually get in. So I will start. Here are some of the 6 reasons, and there are a bunch more than this, but here are 6 great reasons to teach at a community college. I'll start with number 1. It's always about the students. Our students are amazing. They are everything you could imagine and more. Yes, maybe some of them have come from untraditional families. They're first generation students. They're working, but you know what? They are trying so hard. And like, I've worked at, other Harper College, which is not in CCC. And the student demographic is very different. Like our students at CCC are just the hardest workers. The progress I see in them is so amazing. And it's like, I don't know, it just makes me smile bright. Like everything that I do and all the hard work that I have is about those students, right? And they appreciate it and they show you. So
And then just on top of that, I think there are many ways that teaching at a community college allows you to be aware of some, I guess I'm talking about 3 first, allows you to become aware of some of the misconceptions about community colleges and the sort of stratifying of higher education and thinking about community college as being something other than higher ed. And so really what we do is we teach for social justice so often, and that these are lifelong transferable skills, that we can use our experiences like this and at conferences and at work that we do nationally and locally to really think through and undo some of those misconceptions. And with transformative teaching practices, you can also destabilize what Bell Hooks talks about as white supremacist, imperialist, capitalist patriarchy. You can do that in many ways in interactions with students and in the curriculum and in your pedagogical practices. And definitely, to echo what Anna says, with what students bring to the work, and what they want from the work, and the ripple effect that their experience in your classrooms will have in like their own lives, their families' lives, community, and then much broader from there.
So in shorter terms, you literally can change the world in small and big ways. And I feel that all the time. Like, I'm like, wow, we just changed something that was happening here. Like, and it's amazing to watch. On top of that, another reason is like your colleagues, right? Like we have these amazing group of colleagues who are mentor us. We support each other. We talk about the world, about life, about our students. Like you're not by yourself, right? Like, so you have this group of colleagues that's always going to kind of be there for you, talk things out, figure things out. And you can experience being an active member of the department, even if you are a part-time colleague, right? Like I am very close with a lot of our part-time colleagues who have been there for many, many years. And so you can have that opportunity to be a part of the department, be a part of those conversations, change things like curriculum, right? Add things, be a voice, right? So all of those things are another amazing reason to teach at community colleges.
And for point 5, you can develop teaching experience and a portfolio to shop yourself around, as it says, as you might go to other colleges as you progress in your career. And one of the things we have for our tenure track faculty is called the TAP program, the Tenure Assistance Program. And that has supports under pillars like teaching and learning, measuring learning, academic leadership, shared governance, academic freedom, shared governance and leadership, as well as what we call DERS, diversity, respect, and student services. So we have operationalized support in that way, and we also have PD frameworks for adjunct faculty, for tenured faculty as well, called the core competencies. We have, especially if you're if you've made it through 3 semesters and you're now unionized as adjunct, or you're automatically in the union once you're tenure track or tenured, there's PD funds. Like we go to the National Women's Studies Association conference each year, and we don't pay for that, thank goodness. I still would, it's a great conference, but our union pays for that. And then beyond that, I'll say we qualify as one of the employers that you can use for student loan forgiveness. And just, I want to make this really clear because a colleague didn't know this and it was really sad because you need a minimum of 30 hours a week, right? To have your months of working in qualifying employment to count. And she had something like 28, and she's like, oh, I didn't know you could add up hours from different jobs. So if you are considering student loan forgiveness, I hope that you know that if you have 2 employers that are qualifying employers and they both at least add up to 30 hours, that would count. But speak to your lenders for more specifics, but that's a national standard right there.
Shout out to loan forgiveness that has changed our life. All right. Although there are so many great reasons to teach at a community college, we don't want you to go into it with some ideas that may not be what are reality actually. So we do want to start by saying that full-time tenure track positions, they are rare. It's not a guarantee that you're going to be hired for a full-time position as a former adjunct. However, the strange thing about us saying that is all 3 of us were adjuncts. We all started as adjuncts first. The other beautiful thing is that I believe all 3 of us are on the hiring committees at our school, right? So we are part of those decisions that are being made about who is being hired in our departments, which is a good thing, especially for those of you that showed your faces. We can see who you are. We know that you're involved, you're in it. So another reality check is that seniority and union status do affect your course assignments. So one thing that you do have to consider is, and this, can be scary, but if you are an adjunct, for example, if you're hired as an adjunct, you could have a class and then something happens where a full-timer or an adjunct with more seniority, their class doesn't fill or gets dropped or something, and they could actually take the course from you. So that is a reality check, and it's a sad one. I know that as full-timers, we try really hard not to what's called bump any adjunct faculty from their courses. But we have to teach a certain amount of courses. So sometimes it's necessary for a full-timer to have to take a course, or sometimes for a more senior adjunct professor to take a course.
And adjunct pay is very low and hardly ever with benefits. When I started, and Anna, I completely trust you on the current policy. Your household knows the union contract better than I do. But each college has its nuances, and somehow, as an English instructor, I was always allowed to teach 4, and in some cases, I taught 6 courses a semester. So, there's a little creative insubordination happening across the district, I think. But with that being said, I was making like 16,000 a year. I think once you're unionized now as an adjunct in your 3rd semester, I think the minimum would be closer to 25,000. It's not as low as it used to be about 10 years ago. And the other thing is regarding the benefits, something that I think is better now, but that I hope you would speak up for, advocate for yourself with, is if you're also a tutor in one of the tutoring centers and your hours with tutoring and your hours with adjuncting add up to at least 30 hours, go to HR and advocate for yourself and say, hey, you all actually are supposed to be giving me benefits. Because I was one of those people that I just didn't know that was even a possibility to advocate for myself in that way. I was working like 25 hours tutoring and X amount of hours that were at least 5 hours teaching. And that would have been huge for me to have Blue Cross Blue Shield benefits. What I'll say about point 4, most adjuncts do have a day job or teach at more than one college sometimes. And I also want to give credit to a lot of the department chairs and a lot of the administrators who understand that that is a reality. So they do try to work with you, and when allowable, they try to switch some things around. So at Malcolm X College, we're still trying to figure out some of our GDubs courses and ancillary GDubs courses. So humanities 144, and Amanda, you might have to help me out with this. Gender and feminism in the arts is the new title, right?
Yes, you got it.
So that course, we just gave it to an adjunct today who was already in the humanities department, and we moved the time because we understand that, we need to make this equitable for the adjuncts when they sign up. Like, yeah. So I'll pass it to you, Amanda, for the last 2.
Yeah, so another reality check is just to realize that every college, every program, every department is going to have varied institutional cultures, that you might have varying degrees of academic freedom, what we call academic freedom. You might be hired to teach a course and then be handed the textbook, handed the syllabus, and handed guidelines for what you're supposed to do in the classroom. And in other cases, especially if you've been teaching as an adjunct for a while, working with your department, they might give you free reign to say you develop the class however you want, choose your textbooks as long as we make those course assignments early. And, for Viggy's example, that sometimes we can work with adjuncts on scheduling. And so that does not exist everywhere. And so just having a real sense of there might be differing degrees of support for, first of all, for GDubs or affiliated kinds of classes, and different support for social justice teaching in the evaluation process and in just mentoring you might receive. So not every, we might be painting a wonderful picture of our programs, but that's not necessarily going to be the case across the board, that there are just different cultures at each community college, wherever you might go. And a lot of that has to do with like funding too, and state funding, and like financial aid and legal lawmaking that affects students' lives and teachers. And also just a reality check, and this is something that I think about a lot. It's very emotionally laborious. There's just a lot of, if you're doing it with your full heart, as I know you would be, you really need to bring to it a great deal of patience and empathy and time and energy and engagement and care for your students and availability on, more ways than you might otherwise have the time and energy for. Being really conscientious in your curriculum and curriculum planning, using active pedagogies, and a lot of emotion. So every semester there's always a moment where I just like breakdown. I've heard so many stories from students, so many obstacles that they're facing, so many hardships and challenges, and so many things that make them resilient or that they have to be resilient for. And you often take in a lot of that kind of emotional work. And so, you know, maybe that's the case everywhere you might teach, but I just feel like it's intensified with community college students and in that environment.
So I think we're gonna
Okay, so this is probably why a lot of you are here. Like, okay, so I'm good. I got it. I'm willing to roll with it. Now, what do I do from here? How do I get hired? How do I find a job? How do I stay hired? So the hiring process is different again at all different colleges. This is based on what we know from past practice and what we have done and being on hiring committees, being department chair, and having a sense of how we're hiring for different programs that we might coordinate within the department as well. So there are hiring seasons, and this we're on a semester schedule. So usually in the spring, late spring, early summer, departments will be looking to fill courses for the fall. Sometimes, however, that's like the ideal. Sometimes, however, you know, I'm on hiring committees in July and August, and classes are going to start in 2 weeks. So there is a range of like this wide window. And for fall semester, that was the example for fall semester, but for spring, those assignments go out usually like October, November. Does that sound right to you and Anna? I
Yeah.
think so.
I
And
did wanna,
then,
can I mention one thing though,
yeah,
Amanda? I don't know if those things are changing, and we didn't talk about this necessarily because of the year-long scheduling.
That's what I was going to
So
add.
right,
Yeah.
we're
right.
shifting
You're
to
absolutely right about that.
a year-long scheduling. So right now I had to put in my schedule for all the way until next
A year from
week.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's changing a little bit, although there are some hiccups with it.
right.
So
And
And I
that's
don't
about
know how that's impacting part-time hiring as
because
well,
those
whether we're
schedules
hiring
are,
further out.
yeah, because those schedules are being created as well. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, all the
Um,
way through next spring.
And once you have a relationship, once you're already hired in the department, um, you know, you will submit a inquiry, an interest form that says what your credentials to teach, the courses you want to teach, and your like preferred times that you are available. And then the department will work with you to make those assignments. And so to renew your contracts each semester, that process, there's a process for that. Typically when you're in the hiring process or application process, you'll need a letter of interest that highlights what you, like any position, highlights what you are interested in, what you've taught, your credentials, your academic work, your teaching experience, anything that you think you should highlight for the committee. You should provide a CV, curriculum vitae, which is different from a resume and is much more academic. Official graduate transcripts are always required in order to be hired. Unofficial is sometimes okay early on, but official ones are always required to know for sure, to confirm someone's degree and also to know what they might be credentialed for. It's helpful to have on hand, though you might not be required to submit one, a teaching philosophy, a statement of your teaching methods, your ideas about what teaching is all about, what it should be, what good teaching is, your commitments in your teaching practice. You might also be developing a teaching portfolio where you have sample syllabi, you have students' work, you have letters from students that say how awesome you are. You have sample assignments, things that show your skills as an educator and your development as an educator. And then you submit these using official channels. Every college will have a different platform, and you want to look on the college websites both for the ads and the and that submission point, as well as outside lists you might be on. And you should have those things on hand for the interview, the different documents that you're submitting there. And then questions to expect, that very first one, what do you, or some variation, what do you know about community colleges? What do you know about this college? We've asked in the past, what do you know about teaching and learning, which is a really broad question, but it forces you to think about specific ways that you are conceptualizing what it means to teach and for someone to learn or for you to learn. We've asked things about how would your teaching practice be aligned or be different or be, I'm not getting the right word, but how would your teaching practice reflect the diversity or the demographics or the mission statement of the college? And those are the types of things. So another one is walk us through a typical class session. What would you do first? What would you do next? What kind of active learning would you do? What kind of assessment would you do? How does this fit or meet the objectives or the student learning outcomes of the course? And that might be part of what you're asked during an interview. You might ask questions about timeline, just like any interview process, timeline. You might ask questions, if they haven't already said, about which courses they are looking for, and then use that as an opportunity to say, here's what I am qualified for, what I really am passionate about teaching, and you could rely on me to teach these courses. You might ask about the mentoring, like what do they have in place for support of you as an instructor? What kind of mentoring is in place? Will you just be handed your class and said, okay, off you go? Or will you have contact and someone who's taught the class before who will work with you, provide sample syllabi, who will like check in with you periodically? What's the culture of the department? What's great about the department? All of those things I think are good questions to ask.
Can I just say, make
Yeah.
sure to ask a question, at
Oh,
least,
yes.
just at least ask a question, because that's always something where when people who are in interviews don't ask questions, it's actually something that's kind of frowned upon, right?
Yeah.
So make sure that you are asking at least one question in the interviewing process.
Yeah.
And can I quickly add the Teleo operational glitch
Oh,
that we have?
yes.
Yeah, so when you submit our program for what you upload your documents to, like your CV and such, I think it's called Teleo. If you applied to Wright College and you want to be an instructor there, but let's say you applied to Harold Washington and you want to be an advisor or wellness center director, it keeps your most recent submissions. So be careful if you're writing something very specific, like I only want to work at Wright College. The others, like, because it might or it usually glitches and populates to the most recent documents. In those cases, we've had people who submit their documents reach out to the department chair directly to say, hey, do you have the correct documents? I'm attaching them to an email to that department chair.
We're getting close to the end, so we're going to kind of just speed through
Yes,
everything
I think
here.
most of this on this slide we've talked about already in other
Right.
ways.
Yeah,
Marketing your degree, especially with the nuances of credentialing, whether you need to highlight that you have a thread running through your master's work, like you did a lot of arts and media in your projects and in your your capstone, or maybe you have a sort of sociological thread running through. You might be needing to to be credentialed in a certain discipline outside of the GW's core. You might need to sort of spin your degree a certain way.
All right. And now we'll just focus in on maintaining that success once you're hired. What do you do to stay hired or to move up and get that tenure track full-time position? One of the things that's really important is continually taking part in professional development, right? So whether that is professional development in the way that you teach when it comes to pedagogy, or it could be professional development in your content area. If you're showing that you're continually working on getting better at whatever that is, that's always a good thing. That's always something that we want to see when we're hiring full-timers, right? And also continuing to hire, excuse me, hire you as a part-timer as well. There is an evaluation process for adjuncts and also full-timers, but it's a little bit different. But the evaluation process for part-timers there are things like class visits, where we're looking for your quality of teaching, how well you know your students, are you using things like active learning, right? And Amanda, maybe you can help me on how often those transpire for adjuncts, because I've done them. I'm just not sure how often they happen.
Yeah, I feel like it has to be if you're in your first is it 2 years before you're unionized? If you're in your first semesters, it's every semester. And then once you're unionized, I think it's every like 3 years it cycles through again, but some departments visit more regularly. And the purpose is to provide feedback, but also like evaluation on your teaching and your status in the department.
You want to continue to use transformative pedagogies, right? Like I know one of my big things for my tenure project had to do with a particular thing that I was doing in my classroom, which was creating families in my classroom. And that's how I got tenure, right? Is that I did that. I used those transformative pedagogies that I still use to this day. Many years ago is when it was started. So constantly looking back and seeing how you're teaching and how you're being transformative in the classroom. And then also, like we said before, making sure to establish yourself in the department. Even if you are a part-timer, make yourself shown, talk to people, be involved, right? Like those things are going to be noticed. They're going to allow you to keep the job, and perhaps later on when a full-time position comes open, to get that full-time position.
And I will try to say these last 4 points pretty quickly. So be sure to establish yourself outside of the department too, in co-curricular spaces and extracurricular spaces. That could be co-curriculars like some of our Black feminist thought programming that we often have in February, which is like a co-space for faculty and students as well as other staff. Involvement in co-curricular programming can also be like if you are an embedded tutor and you infuse like almost like a GW's designation on embedded tutoring. Then there's extracurricular stuff like Feminist Unite Club and other clubs that we've had across the district. Be reflective and open to feedback. And I think a subtext of that is also something a colleague at Wright College once told me. Not that I don't play nice, but it's just a general thought, which is play nice with everyone because the department and the school is like your family, and you are going to have to, especially if you're tenured or tenure track, you're going to have to be with this family for the rest of your career. So just keep that in mind that, most of us at City Colleges of Chicago, even the adjuncts who have been there since the 1980s, some of them, you want to make sure that you're being collegial and respectful and centering that family sort of mindset with things. The last point, maintaining a teaching portfolio. I think we talked about this already kind of enough, but yeah, I like the bold or the capitalized part, take joy and pride in your work with students. So I will pass it to Amanda for the closing slide.
Before you pass it though, I just want to say, even though playing nice is important, speaking up is important as well. That's something that I know we look for in our adjuncts that we're looking to hire full-time is like, do they have a voice? Do they have something to say? So even though you're playing nice, you still have to be able to, you have to be able to voice your opinions about curriculum, about the, I don't know, programs, everything that's going on in the college.
Anna, that's such a good point. You know what, I want to just add a quick note about that. Use your voice for policy, procedure, and practices, never about people. I think it's the 3 Ps we center in faculty council. Absolutely.
I love that so much. That's a great reminder. And just in closing, we'll close with bell hooks again. These teachers showed me that one could choose to educate for the practice of freedom.
I cannot believe that we stayed on point. We did it, guys.
We hustled through. But I'm sorry there wasn't a lot of breathing space for you all to participate. So we want to just open things up now for questions, reflections. We can also stay after the time for anyone who would like to check in with us as well.
I would like to say just thank you so much for doing this workshop. And I know you all gave like a little check-in about it, but it seems like you all have a really wonderful community and a lot of support. I love teaching at DePaul more than anything. I really do have a family there. But sometimes it is really hard to connect with others as an adjunct. I have like an advantage because I was a student at DePaul for so long, so I already knew so many of my colleagues, but it is really easy to be so disconnected from everyone else. And so, especially with the 3 of you being at different colleges, it's really nice to see how you've fostered this community together. So it's really inspiring.
Thank you. So glad.
Anyone else? If no one else wants to ask questions or reflect, we just wanted to share that we have some resources for you.
Yes, so some of those resources, which I'm sure DePaul has been great about sharing, that National Women's Studies Association exists, and one of their caucuses is a community college caucus. There's also the AACC Career Center link there, the ICCB link, so Illinois Community College Board link. And I would also add adjacently to that, the Illinois Articulation Initiative would be helpful if you're curious about why some of our courses are humanities, fine arts, or social sciences. And then you can also use these other links. For more info, I'll pass it to Anna for the last slide. I think it's the last slide.
Yeah,
Yes.
the last slide is just if some of these books that I know all of us have read, like we've read, and some of them I had to read, I know, at DePaul for the WGS program. So they're super helpful. As we said, professional development is always key. And so just staying on top of not only your content, your curriculum, but also your teaching is important. And some of these could be really, really helpful in that. And that's our last slide. Thank
Oh my
you all so
goodness.
much.
I just want to say just deep gratitude for each of you. This has been an amazing presentation. And I hope people will, speak out or put things in the chat, but I just, yeah, it's just so comprehensive and so grounded and exciting. So, I don't know, do other people have things that they want to say? Maybe say in the chat or unmute yourselves, but I just want to say thank you so much for this. Really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to figuring out what we can do together, other things that we're going to do together and ways that we can build on this program. So anything else from any of our other participants?
Well, thank you so much for inviting us as well. This has been really wonderful for us as also.
We appreciate you all.
I
Well,
just wanted to say that it's such a delight to see and hear from you and to know you're there in these broader networks of women's studies folks. I'm just looking forward to collaborating more. Also, like, holding students you send to us. I mean, there's so much to talk about. Like, we have so many students sometimes who come from community colleges, and figuring out how we can support these students as we also work with you all together. I'm super excited. Thank you so much. I learned so much about the system, community college system.
So excited. We never want to part ways with DePaul. We're gonna stay with you guys forever.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you again, everyone. And we'll be in touch. Hope you join
Oh,
us next time.
and if they registered, as I know they all did, would we have a list of email addresses so that we can send the slideshow to everyone? Or
Absolutely.
should we
I
have
can
them
also
write
send it
email
for you.
addresses in the chat?
No,
Do you
we
all
have
have a list?
everyone's email address, and so we can in fact, if you want, if you send me the slideshow, I can just send it out through the
Forward it
through
out.
the system. There's
Okay.
I can do that, and also we'll have this recording, so we can also share that if it's okay with you.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Of course. Yes. Thank you so much.
I think I saw a hand.